and welcome everyone on a new episode of Money Means Business. Today we are going to focus on our performance regarding the financial issues, regarding our economic progress, regarding the word competitiveness, the word sustainability. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi held an important meeting with Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli as well as the Minister of Finance, and they discussed a number of issues, namely our economic competitiveness and the way to boost our economy in various domains, whether it's industry or agriculture, whether it's increasing our exports or decreasing the imports, whether how to make sure that the state is exerting the utmost efforts to encourage new investments, foreign direct investment, new entrepreneurs, new startups, SMEs, you name it. There is a lot to do, and there is a lot of homework to be done. The strategic partnership between the public and private sectors, all this, I think, it was discussed, but most important thing is the executive steps taken on the ground. What are we doing to implement all the things we discussed in theory? Are there practical steps, tangible ones? The answer is yes, but how and what we should more? These are going just parts of the questions we are going to have, and we are going to have our answers with our strategic experts. So right after the short break, we are going to return back with more, so stay tuned. Welcome back. Before we start, let me first welcome my dear guest live here in the studio, Dr. Ahmed Al-Laythi Nasif, our International Consultant of Strategy and Management. Thank you very much for being with us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
And as I said in my intro, this important meeting, which was held recently by the President along with the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, to study more the indicators of our performance regarding our economy, investments, how to curb inflation, how to boost our budget, all these things, of course, most important thing to be discussed within the economic circle. But here, if you permit me, I'm going to start with executive tangible steps taken on the ground. And we are going to take an example with the activities of today, only today, by Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, as he was in El Alamein. And he, for example, witnessed the ceremony to hand over a number of units in the new Alamein city. And he said that the government sought to develop El Alamein to be one of the most important cities attracting major investments. How do you see El Alamein as one of the examples?
I think there is no easy way to say it. We have made a big mistake in the past, in the previous eras, whereby we looked at Alamein and North Coast as a recreational destination. And what did that lead to? It led to billions and billions of Egyptian pounds being stuck basically in non-productive assets, mostly in cement and in houses that doesn't add any value, and is being used for 2, maximum 3 months a year. This is a huge waste. If we look at our region, we have next to us, we have Libya, and we have Tunisia, and we have Algeria. The 3 countries do have a coast exactly like our coast, and they live there. This is where the major cities for these 3 countries are, on this coast. So basically what we're doing, we're trying to correct with the President Sisi and his administration, we're trying to correct the mistakes of the past. We had a huge waste, and we still have some of it unfortunately left, but maybe we cannot fix it at 100%, but at least what we're doing is we're transforming, we're expanding. It was a real shame that Egyptians are living, just actually not now, but even when President Sisi came to power, Egyptians were living on 2.5% of the surface of Egypt. And that, again, that's a huge waste. 97.5% was not utilized. There are 2 reasons globally where people live in a certain area. One is near the coasts, and 2 is near the rivers. Or if there is a certain artificial economic activity, and we have several examples for that. We focused only on being the living areas or surface in Egypt being around the river Nile, and we have reached one of the highest densities in the world. This is not really the best way to manage things. We have a huge cost, and the funny part of the story is we do have a lot of coastal cities, especially on the east of Egypt, starting from El Arish to Port Said to Dumyat and what have you. I think because traditionally, after the Second World War, there was this problem of mines in the Western Desert, but it's behind us now. And it will be a huge shame and waste that we don't utilize this huge opportunity, this beautiful piece of land, not just for 2 or 3 months a year, but for the whole
If you permit me to quote Mr. Prime Minister, if this is going to answer what you have just said, or to echo what you have just said, sir. Prime Minister Dr. Madbouli emphasized the state's commitment to providing diverse housing options to meet the needs of various segments of society in New Alamein city, to ensure it remains vibrant all year round, not just during the summer.
Absolutely. And this is the right strategy. This is like you buy, I don't know, say a car, for example, and use it only for 1 or 2 days a week. This is very inefficient. The other thing that His Excellency the Prime Minister is doing is basically inducing or encouraging a middle part of the society to move there, and he's using the offerings that he's done today to attract this segment of the population. The message that he's saying loud and clear, this part of the country is not just for the rich and famous, On the opposite, it is for everybody. It's for all Egyptians.
Yeah.
And it will only be inhabited and livable part of the country only when all segments of the population move, not just go visit there for a few weeks a year.
And also, I'm going to quote Prime Minister Dr. Madbouli when he said, more developmental and service projects are being implemented in the city to meet the needs of its residents and fulfill the national sustainable development goals. As the Americans say, build it and they will come.
Absolutely. True? Very much so. I mean, if you don't have the basic suprastructure needs to deliver on what a population would need to go there, be it schooling, be it hospitals, be it churches and mosques, and all sorts of services that one would need in his daily life, people will not move there. So you need exactly to build the suprastructure part of the urban development phase, and people will go there.
In addition, of course, to Al Alamein Festival in its second edition, and it's achieving success. But this is for our guests, for the tourists coming from all over the Arab world in specific. But as you've kindly mentioned, when it comes to urban communities, for us, for Egyptians, this is another story. But they can combine together.
Exactly. There is no contradiction. I mean, again, if we look at the one of the countries, I think they did a brilliant job in that, and there is no harm to learn from our brothers and sisters in Tunisia, is how they mixed and managed.
Yeah.
All the key cities in Tunisia are on the coast, all of them. Okay, and
still, sir, you're talking about 10 million people, meaning that half of Greater Cairo.
Yes.
So I cannot compare.
I might tend to differ, because actually you don't even have 10 million people in there. So
no,
actually,
I mean, when it comes to all people are there, because all of them are only 10 million.
Yes, but we don't have anybody living in this area. We have almost zero. I don't have the numbers, but yeah, maybe not zero, but very, very small numbers. And Algeria 38. Morocco is about 42. And they're mostly living around that area. So to live around the coast does not contradict, and this is the very important message, does not contradict having touristic activities and appealing, continue. You can have very good tourism there, and you have people living in there.
And I don't know if I should say this or no, but simply with this extraordinary relation between Egyptians and the Nile River, you would find Egyptians stuck to the Nile River, and that's it. And it's time to change that, or change this culture, if I may call it this way.
Of course, the Nile is as old as Egypt, so basically we've always had it there, but that does not mean that this is the only reason or the only place Egyptians can live.
The only source of living, but I don't know, this is a way or something which I may call passion. When it comes to the Nile River, you're going to find people there. Anyway, this is not, of course, an excuse. And as you've kindly mentioned, it's not logic at all to live on this very tiny, small part of Egypt and to live.
I think the real answer is in economic activities. People move where there is economic activities. And we have 2 or 3 examples. One of them is the famous example of Las Vegas, which is literally in middle of nowhere, and because there was tourism and economic activities that was created, this whole area flourished and became a very attractive place. Another good example is Dubai. Dubai does not, many people don't know this, has very little petrol, and the key drivers is the vision of the ruler there, and it is all the economic activities and the facilities and the openness that they are providing for everybody. It is not petrol that brought people to Dubai. So you can create economic activities, and where there is economic activities, people will move.
And in addition to the governmental headquarters, it's also something, I think, a little bit new for us to find that President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi receives a high-ranking guest there in Al Alamein. And last but not least, it was the visit by UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. And if I can add to that, Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madouli held a meeting on Saturday with Emirati Minister of Industry Sultan Al Jaber, and they discussed ways of boosting cooperation between Egypt and the United Arab Emirates in various domains. It was there, and they focused on industry, on electricity, on energy, on investments, and the most important statement which was released by His Excellency Sultan Al Jaber, that it's not only about the current joint business or the current joint mega projects taking place on the ground, but no, the UAE or the United Arab Emirates is ready to be involved into more investments and into more mega projects on the Egyptian soil. How do you see this, sir?
This is very truly, and rightly so, as you said, it's new for us. But if we look at the European Parliament, they actually move, and they do have two sites. And this is very common. If you look at the US president, quite often he would go to Camp David for, over holidays, but he still holds some of the meetings as a retreat. So I think it's part of the evolution, and people look up to the president, people look up to the prime minister, and when they see them doing this, they believe that if they can do it, then we can also maybe run our business from there. So I think they're setting an example, setting the tone that others would follow.
And simply, this is a very I don't know if this is a direct message or an indirect message saying how secure Egypt is. Our security, you can find people just walking in the street or wandering here and there and finding high-ranking officials or finding people whom they only see on TVs or stuff like that, just with them in the on the streets, just walking and having their holidays, or even they are having their business there.
If I may, security is very truly there, but actually the security in Egypt goes well beyond the physical security of the visitors or the important visitors that we receive over there. I think one of the key lesson that is being learned now, after everybody, the whole world saw what is happening in Europe with the Russian investments, and because of, without even getting into who's right and who's wrong, but because of a certain political conflict, the assets and the savings and the investments of Russia is being nationalized in Europe for an amount of over 450 billion US dollars, or the equivalent of that. And any investor in Egypt knows that this will never happen to him or to his money in Egypt. So security is, yes, on the personal level, of course, but also for their investments. And that's a very, very important thing, because anybody or any investor who wants to go into a country and wants to invest in this country, if he cannot be secured that his investment and his capital are safe, he will never come. It's the rule number one. If he personally is not safe, of course he will not come. And number two, if his investments are not safe, he will not invest. So I think the message was loud and clear when, rather than the Europeans being able to confiscate investments, this could upset or or put at risk some of the investment there. And I think our brothers and sisters in the Arabian Gulf got that message.
Yeah. Back to the meeting which I mentioned in my intro, as President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met with Prime Minister Dr. Madbouli, Minister of Finance Ahmed Kojuk, to follow up on the financial performance indicators of the general budget. Here I'm going to mention some of the points which were discussed, and I'd like you, sir, if you permit me, to elaborate on that. President al-Sisi placed high priority on continuing intensive efforts to curb inflation through integrated and consistent programs and policies. To have this on the ground, I know it's a very long journey, because here I'm not talking only about inflation in Egypt or in developing countries, but I think inflation is a global issue affecting all. True? Or if you agree with me on that first, and if yes, what to do or what should be our priority?
Two things.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Inflation is a big problem globally. And it's not only Egypt. The order of magnitude yet is different. In Egypt, we do have what we call in economics hyperinflation. When the US has an inflation of, like, say, 9 or 10%, this is huge. And the US, we're using it as a reference point because it is the largest economy in the world. Whereas our inflation is in the late 20s, early 30s. So that magnitude is a big issue.
Yeah.
Then some of it is a ripple effect. Some of it came to us because of we imported inflation. We imported a large part of the inflation. And the reason why we imported, again, without going into mega details or very technical details, there are two main reasons. The first one is that we do have very superficial industry. We do not produce a lot of components that go into what we produce in Egyptian factories. We import a lot of the components,
and because of that, there is a will to localize industry, and via what? Via the usage of our local components, and give incentives to all manufacturers. If you use from 60 until 60 or to 65% of the local components in your industry, this is going to be a big issue, and you are going to be supported fully by the state.
Yeah, that triggers part two. Why is it so? I mean, are these people just lazy? And this is the reason why that they're, they don't want to produce anything. So is it easier for them to import it? No, not really. It is an overpriced currency. Our currency is overpriced. Or overvalued, actually.
Until the moment, I can say so.
It depends who you talk to, but there are different schools. But globally speaking, if your currency is overvalued, what happens is that it is cheaper for you to import than to produce.
Sure.
So to stop this, the only solution is to bring the currency to its real value. Once you bring the currency to its real value, then all of a sudden there are so many items and components and semi-finished inputs into industry that would be much more economically efficient, i.e. less expensive to produce locally than to import. The mistake that we've done, unfortunately, for 40 years, starting from 1977, when President Sadat has freezed the price of the currency, and we spent the 40 years after subsidizing the value of the Egyptian pound, not subsidizing those who needed subsidy, which led that we are importing, and we were importing almost for 40 years, all sorts of luxury items and luxury goods subsidized, which did not make really any sense to import French cheese and Swiss chocolate at a subsidy. That did not make any sense. But the experience that President Sadat had in January 1977 is what led to this. President Sisi had the courage, and I say it up front, he had the courage to break this dynamic which lasted for 40 years and do what is right for today and for the long term.
Despite the fact that what you're talking about is very tough, is very harsh, and of course it has its negative impact on the living standard of our citizens. True? And here I should go to that because
Can
when
I reflect on this point before you go?
Sure, but I'm going to just to say
Sure.
only a sentence, and of course
Go ahead.
I'd like you to elaborate on that because exactly when the president said that the highest priority is to continue intensive efforts to curb inflation, but at the time to ensure the availability of goods and services in the markets for the citizens, continues to increase spending on health, education, and social protection sector. This is such a challenge. And when we say that we want to do this and in the same time to do that, this is, I think, an impossible equation, or we need a miracle. True? Or these are things which can be implemented on the ground using some strategies?
Okay, miracle periods are finished, are done. So we have, unfortunately, to resort to science. Okay. Yes, this is very hard, and the reason why it is hard, again, we pressed something for 40 years. When President Sisi came, he saw a very chronic problem.
Yeah.
And there is only one way to solve it. And the way to solve it is what we're doing. It is very tough. It is really very tough. The easiest thing would have been just to continue on with the dynamic, sweep it under the carpet, and you move on. But then we're not resolving the problem. We're just, putting in a band-aid on it. Yes, it is tough because we are not fixing an inflation of today or last year. We are all of a sudden facing an inflation that has been postponed for more than 40 years, from 1977 until today. And when you open the lid, guess what? Yes, lots of steam comes out. We are facing the steam now. Is it going to last forever? No. Why? Because of a lot of scientific reasons, but without again getting into a lot of technical details, we could look at countries like Kazakhstan, we could look at countries like Russia itself, after the Perestroika and the change and them moving to capitalism and open, or they call it open market policies, they had something not very different from what we have today. They went through a period which was very difficult, but today they became very, very solid economically speaking. We have no choice. We really have no choice.
This is it. Do we have other choices, or we do not have the luxury of even thinking about other choices?
We have sick choices. We have a choice of, sorry to use the analogy, of a cancer patient, and we have the choice to give him some aspirin. This will never resolve the problem. It will maybe calm the pain a little bit, but again, it's going to come, and it's going to come harder, because you are not going to...
So we are handling the disease, not the symptoms.
Today, this is what we're doing. We call it the root cause, which is the real reason why we have this problem.
But in addition, sir, to what you have said regarding the root causes, I think also to have some industrial policies, if I may call it this way, to export our raw material instead of manufacturing our raw material, to focus on certain colleges, for example, and not to focus on technical education. There is, I think it's a circle, and we do have a lot of elements. They should be put together to achieve economic progress, to achieve sustainability. It's not to focus on one thing and to leave the other. And the hard side of the difficult side of the coin, or I think the main issue we have, that we do not have the luxury of focusing on one side and leaving the other. We should, or it's a must, to go or to walk in all directions at the very same time. If you agree with me on that.
I agree. Again, the economic, and I think also this is the tough balance that the government is trying to play. From one end, they're doing real economic reforms, and this is what they're doing. And from the other end, they understand perfectly that this will have repercussion and could even fire back on some segments of the society. So they are increasing the investment and the work on the social programs like Live with Dignity, like Tahya Masr, and all these sort of programs that we have. And it is only with striking this difficult balance between doing the right thing, which is tough, and trying to soften the blow on the lower end of the scale in the socioeconomic segments. So it is very tough. It's not gonna last forever. I'm happy you mentioned also the education thing. Again, the thing that I admire a lot about the current administration is the courage in taking decisions. And the decisions that they take is quite often about breaking the norms, things that have been in place for 40 and 50 years, and maybe even, God knows, maybe much longer than this. And they have the courage to change. And change is not easy. In management, we teach people that change is always met with resistance. And it's always very easy to say we've always done it this way. Doing it something new, doing things differently, it's not always that easy.
What's your dream regarding our education system, sir? Or dreams?
It's very simple, really.
Yeah.
Our education system needs to be adjusted. One of the opinions I have, and maybe it's not very politically correct to mention it, and maybe it might not be very
whether it's for the best interest of Egypt, then it's correct.
It depends who you talk to again, and I believe that education should not be free, at least not for everybody. Okay, I believe that there should be some sort of a responsibility, financial responsibility, I mean, for education, because as any other sector, I really would not want to be in the seat of the Minister of Education in Egypt, because what is
he's taking drastic decisions these days, by the way.
He is, but again, he has mega challenges, because he is requested to deliver certain things with resources that do not meet the needs. So this is something we face all the time in management, in business, in companies, and on all different fronts, that the resources that you can have or have access to are much way below what you need to do. The solution is always, and it gets executed in different ways, you have to set priorities. Okay?
This is it. Because of that, I wanted to ask my question in other words. Finance, is it finance? Is it qualified cadres? Is it the culture of the Egyptians? Because I'm going to focus on that a little bit. Or is it the timing when we are doing that, when we are taking these drastic steps or changes, which you've kindly mentioned, said that it's always saying, we are always saying in management that changes are always met with resistance.
In what direction? In what sense you mean?
For example, I don't know who made or who set this pyramids of colleges. Why there is colleges on top of the pyramid and others on the bottom? Who said that faculty of engineering and medicine, for example, should be on top of the pyramid, and faculty of agriculture and law should be there in the bottom, according to the degrees achieved, or how, to what extent this boy or girl just graduated from school and he's going to join the college? Who said that the one with the minimum degrees should go to Faculty of Agriculture or Law, and others with big with the distinction should go to faculties of medicine and engineering. Who made this? Because I think until the moment when we talk about millions of pheasants we reclaimed, we need qualified agricultural experts. This is only an example. True?
I don't know, to answer your question, I don't know who made it, but what I know is
it logic anyways?
Again, it is not about logic. It's about, again, there is supply and demand as anything else.
Mm-hmm.
We ask ourselves, if somebody specializes in, with all due respect, and I am a philosophy reader myself, but if somebody specializes in this, what are the opportunities available in the Egyptian labor market or in other labor market for a graduate with a philosophy degree?
Mm.
So there is, over the years, there is a disconnectivity that took place between the labor, or what the labor market needs, and what we are producing in the sense of education. In the last 10, 15 years, the labor market has evolved a lot, really a lot, especially with the technology that some, or not some, many jobs are disappearing. If somebody is gonna get specialized to become a translator, for example, this job is literally disappearing. I was in Japan about a couple of weeks ago. I don't know one word of Japanese. Using the softwares, I managed to communicate with Japanese people, not in English, but in Arabic. And through a small software on the phone, we were almost having a discussion. Okay, that's almost a translator. So with this, a job like the translators is disappearing. Jobs like travel agencies, with all the programs on the available on the internet, these jobs are disappearing. So what's happening? I'm giving examples to how the labor market is evolving. We need to keep up the pace. We need to evolve our education system to answer to the new labor market needs. If we don't, we're going to be left behind. We're going to be educating our children, our kids on things which does not exist in real life or has no demand in real life. And then what we will need to ask ourselves, what would be the need or the purpose to give them this education? What is the return on investment of these 4 years, whether for the state or for the kids themselves? So we need to evolve our educational system to be in line with the current needs, but also we have to keep in mind that our children, our kids, will not only cater for today's need. They need to cater for tomorrow's need. So we need to know what is coming around the corner and how can we better prepare and make them fit to kind of deliver on tomorrow's needs in the labor market.
This is another very important issue which I hope that we can discuss in more details in another episode of our program, because unfortunately we're running out of time, sir. But as usual, I enjoyed our discussion, and I'm going to leave you with a promise to see you again in more episodes. Thank you. Well, by this we come to the end of our episode. Stay tuned on Nile TV International always for more updates, but I'm going to leave you with the most important economic events which took place in the last 7 days. Many thanks for watching. This was Nermeen Abdurrahman.